Hey, Speedwinghere here, and today I'm going to be talking about Theodora's crew, the 4 characters that I think are incredibly likely to be exclusive to her route. Now, we don't know this for certain, but we've only seen them with Theodora, and based on what we've heard about them so far, I think it's incredibly unlikely that they're going to go across to the other lords. So, first up, we have Bonadventure, or as his Japanese name was Bonaparte. I'm really upset that they changed this, but I can only imagine that a localizer was like, oh, we can't have a colonizer name. Anyway, I love this guy. From the very first time that we got a glimpse of him, I was like, this guy is amazing. So, we have information about him here. The wise general of the kingdom of Salamis. I'm pretty sure it's Saramis for us, which is kind of funny. Still active on the front lines as the right-hand man of the protagonist, Theodora. In a kingdom where the use of writing is forbidden, he memorizes all of Salamis's history and wisdom. This is really cool, by the way. There's actually a case of this happening with a group of people here called the Druids. You might have heard of them. And basically, the Druids also didn't use writing for anything to do with their religious or cultural texts. And it was so effective that even to this day, what we know about the Druids is only Roman propaganda. You may have heard of the Druids being these kind of beast men that lived in the woods. The reason we have that is because there's no actual written record of what their society was like, just Romans going, oh, those stinky druids, the stinky druids. So thousands of years later, this system is still effective in hiding their secrets from the outside world. Considering he's a general, I wonder if he's going to come in as a sort of Jagan type character, or at least, maybe a class or 2 up on what everyone else starts as. We see him using swords and tomes, very tactician-pilled, very Robin-pilled, which is a great combination. Does make me wonder, are we going to see Levin sword dominance again? Pretty much in every modern iteration, the Levin sword has been an exceptional weapon, and this guy is primed to be using it well, I think. In his chapter footage, we see these skeleton-type characters. I think this will be the beginning of hinting at the underworld opening. Gotta say, not a big fan of how these guys are allowed to have portraits, but generic human enemies just have a black void. Like, pick one or the other. I don't know. It just makes me more upset that they've not done it for human enemies for whatever reason. Their presence is kind of interesting, though. I wonder if this is implying that the start of Theodora's story is going to have the undead starting to affect her civilization somewhat, and part of going to the arena for the wish is to get more power to be able to deal with them. We actually see Bonadventure being very, very zippy to this Gangrel-like character over here, where he effectively tells him that the people do not love him. He does not have the power to have the people support him. And I'll be incredibly unsurprised if he's not somehow linked to the big bad that have given him these underworld soldiers in order to usurp Theodora. We actually see Theodora not wearing her crown quite often, and then in her official art she has the crown. So I think what we can probably guess is going to happen is that Theodora has the right to her throne after her father's death. Then this bloke comes along and basically goes, nah, I'm the ruler. You're too weak. She can't even handle dealing with these undead or whatever. And that will be the plot point that pushes Theodora forwards. And Bonadventure and some of these other characters that I'm going to talk about in a second are going to come with her to Dagda to compete in the arena. Then later on, we'll have the incredible twist that this totally not evil looking guy was the one that killed her father all along. So, up next, we have Tobias, who actually kept his name from the Japanese version, which is nice. The stalwart general of Salamis, proud of his strength and defense, who calls the queen, Theodora, Ojo. Now, I imagine that's going to change in the English. That's something that should be localized, most likely. Like Bonadventure, he has served the kingdom since the previous king's time, achieving numerous military feats on the battlefield. He is not good at using his head, and has trouble remembering people's names. Same, mate, same. Maybe I'm a general. So, this is part of the reason why I'm saying I think it's incredibly unlikely that these characters are going to hop. The next 2 might have some wiggle room, but if both Bonadventure and Tobias worked for Theodora's father and are now supporting her, I don't really think Kai being like, oh, here's 5 gifts, here's 5 flowers, now come join my army. Hopefully they don't do that. I think it's good to have some exclusive characters, because that means you can actually flesh out their plot and have them in all the cutscenes. You know, if they were able to jump across to other teams, that then means Theodora's story would be very bare, just her talking to NPCs, which just straight up isn't going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. So this guy is basically meathead. I'm really hoping that Tobias and Bonadventure are going to have this kind of dynamic where Bonadventure is the well-spoken, smart intellectual, and Tobias is the kind of red-blooded, thick mutton head, and they all bounce off each other. Hopefully sometimes Tobias will actually get one over Bonadventure. I love when they do that sort of thing. But yeah, this guy, he's like armor knight pilled. He's very dedu. I've never said that bloke's name out loud. The dude. He's very dedu pilled. We see him in not an armor knight class, but armored knight. I can't remember off the top of my head. This is what it was called in Free Houses, but sure. It says here in the Japanese that he likes liquor, combat, singing, and socializing, but in the English releases of information about him, liquor is missing. I don't know if this is localization at work or whether it's just differences between Japanese and European marketing. We even get a support between him and Lyzander, where Lyzander helps him move a bunch of barrels of wine, and he talks about how much he loves drinking, how much he loves partying. The wine's a little bit cheap, but the reasoning behind that is so he can drink more of it, and that he wishes there was a lake of wine. It'll be interesting to see if this survives into the English version. I don't know if this will survive into the English version or not. We'll have to wait and see. I don't actually have a whole lot to say about Tobias from a gameplay point of view. All we see is him throwing an axe at an enemy. I really wish they'd give us more. I'd love to know personal skills. Sometimes they tell us about personal skills. Most of the time they don't, which is a bit upsetting, but we'll see. But speaking of personal skills, the next character actually does have one that we know about. Lyzander, a brilliant knight of Ceramus, from a prestigious family lineage. His uncle is the current prime minister, and his father is also immortalized in the kingdom's history as a great warrior. He is deeply loyal and possesses great skill, but in his desire to achieve results without relying on his bloodline, he sometimes acts rashly. Well. He is our first cavalier that we've seen, or first playable cavalier that we've seen so far. Quite often, he was pictured on a chicken, on an Ornis, I think they're called. I'm still going to keep calling them chickens until the day I die, because I think it's way funnier. But we do see him now on a horse, or at least a sort of horse, a zorse. Funnily enough, this kind of zebra horse has markings more closely similar to an okapi than anything else, but doesn't matter. It's a fantasy world. People are throwing fireballs out their hands. I shouldn't really nitpick about what species of horse is he riding. I get the feeling that this man's going to be quite bland. He strikes me as he's going to be the straight man for Tobias quite often between him and Bonadventure, and perhaps the straight man for the character coming up next as well. But we'll have to see. We haven't really gotten enough information about him yet. But what is interesting about the footage that they showed us of him is that it's the first Fog of War chapter we've seen. Oh boy, oh goody, oh gosh, Fog of War. Everyone's favourite mechanic. Now, I actually quite like Fog of War, but I'm scared by what they've shown us here. So, the fog in his chapter appears to be sort of Frasier fog. Not fully, but sort of. It's obscuring everything underneath it, so you cannot see the terrain. So you don't know if you're about to walk into woods, or if there's going to be a big fort or something that might have a bunch of enemies on it. The reason why I say sort of not fully is if you look in the bottom left here, you can vaguely make out the impassable terrain. You're just not allowed to see anything else. So it's a sort of near enough attempt at it. His movement range is also a little funky. We don't know for sure yet, but this might be similar to Engage Fog, where you can't move into it. But until we actually get a longer section of gameplay, it's going to be impossible to tell. So we do actually have a vague idea of what his personal skills are going to be. It's called acceleration, and it says that his speed gradually builds up as he defeats enemies, and you even see in the end of his footage him kind of glowing as if he's getting a buff after he kills that enemy. So if he has Speed Taker as a personal skill and he's mounted, this guy might be very, very, very strong. It'll be interesting to see where they go with it. I imagine if it's just like 1 point of speed per kill, it won't matter too much. But if it's quite a few points of speed and it lasts the whole map, this guy could be cracked. This guy could be very, 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 very strong. We'll have to wait and see. Last but not least, we have Lilian. I love this girl. I am such a huge fan of her design. One of my favorite looking characters that they've shown us so far. Ceramus's young archer. She values money above all else, and her behavior toward her lord Theodora often lacks decorum, but her archery skills are impeccable. Due to her somewhat complicated background, her family was of noble lineage until her father lost his position in the Civil War. Likes gold coins, jewels, and older men. Oh my goodness. So, she's a mercenary, basically. I've seen some people throwing around that she's a gold digger, but if you actually pay attention to the support that they show between her and Theodora, she's basically saying to Theodora, hey, you said you would pay me for my fights in the arena, but now that we're doing things outside of the arena, are you going to pay me for those? Shall you increase my payment? I'm motivated by money, and Theodora kind of acts a bit shocked, but thanks her and says, okay, yeah, sure. Maybe this has given me good insight on how I should actually treat my army in the future, which is great. I will say, however, though, this worries me. A canonical support talking about doing fights outside the arena. Now, would this be after the events of the arena? I don't know. That really feels like a C support conversation, as there's not too much depth to it, and it's almost like a first interaction, or at least it gives that feeling. I'm mildly concerned that this game is going to have a heavy emphasis on doing skirmishes. We've already seen this kind of big gap of hundreds of days between arena fights. A lot of the footage we've seen of maps, and I don't know if this is just pure cope of me being a bit worried about some of them looking very bland, very empty, monotype enemies. I'm starting to get the impression that the gameplay loop of Fortune's Weave is going to be going skirmish, 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 like slamming skirmishes in between these main chapter maps in the arena. If they're even referencing it in their support conversation, that, oh, look, I was meant to only be fighting in the arena, but now I'm doing all this other fighting. Oh, dear. But yeah, she's an archer. I love an early game archer. Welcome back, Rebecca. Although I get the feeling she's going to be a lot better than Rebecca. Bows and archers in Free Houses were very good. I mean, the meta, very much so, was equip everyone with gauntlets and a bow in early game, for maddening at least. Now that it seems that every class can't equip every weapon, she might even have even more value, so I think she's going to be a very, very good unit. Now, I'm just going to quickly put this in now, and maybe I'll take this out of the editing if they change things. There is no gameplay for her yet, because they were meant to post it, but there was an earthquake in Japan. And the earthquake in Japan meant that they're just like, they tend to pause social media posts while that's happening. So if some of you are wondering where the footage for her is, that's why. If I put this video out and that's still the case, then that just means they're waiting quite a while. Or I'll probably upload this video and they'll instantly upload footage of her fighting that shows tons of new information. But oh well. Anyway, those are my first initial thoughts on Theodora's crew. Let me know if you want to see me do these for the other lords as well. Theodora's route is the route I'm most interested in. It's the one I'm going to be playing first, but I can yap for days about the rest of them as well if that's something you'd be interested in seeing. Thank you for sticking with me through all of this. I know that it was a bit yappy and wordy, but that's how my videos tend to go. And until next time, I'll catch you later.